Hi, 8th grade teachers. If you're viewing this screencast, it's because you have some student work to calibrate. So you want to take your personal computer to the local and state assessment site. I'm going to do that now. So I'll put in here local and state assessment. And once that comes up, we want to go to the 16-17 interim, try 2, 8th grade page. And then you are going to need to scroll down under the tasks for ELA and math to the folder that says 8th grade info writing PT calibration. This document 00 is the only document you need to print. The others you'll need to access digitally. So you want to stay here on this location, and I'm going to move to our slides. So the goals for this time are that you're able to access the tools to calibrate, become familiar with the anchor papers, check your own alignment to that rubric with some unscored papers and a check set, and hopefully calibrate one piece of student work together with your team. You'll need a laptop for the screencast to play, your own laptop to access the material on the local and state assessment site, a copy of that informational rubric, and maybe something to take some notes on. Document 01 is the calibration guide. It gives the item stem, the performance task, and sources that the 8th graders used. It has the rubrics. Some support material for those rubrics are a conventions chart, which reminds us of the expectations for grade levels, and an explanation of elaboration for explanatory writing as SBAC defines it. You also have in that guide some condition codes, what to put in to illuminate if a student did not write to the task at all, as well as a targets document that links targets, claims, and standards. So in that calibration guide, will you start off by reading the performance task, examining those rubrics and refamiliarizing yourself with them, and also the conventions chart for 8th grade to remind yourself about convention expectation for 8th graders. Will you give yourself about 10 to 15 minutes to do that? And go ahead and pause the screencast here. So a few reminders. The rubrics are 3 traits that add up to a possible 10-point score. Organization and purpose worth 4 points, developmental elaboration worth 4 points, and conventions worth 2 points. In thinking about conventions, we want to think about variety, severity, and density. Variety are the type of errors. Are they making errors in spelling only or in spelling, punctuation, and syntax structure? Severity, what kind of errors are they making? Are they making basic errors like misspelling because, then, more? Or are they making really appropriate errors that aren't severe, misspelling, miscellaneous, photosynthesis, archaic? And then density, the percentage of error in the piece. Is it 15% error, 70% error? So please try to keep those 3 labels in mind when using the conventions rubric. Here is SBAC's definition for elaboration and explanatory writing. I'll give you a minute to read it to yourself. So I think this is something most of us can connect with. I know you teach your students to add detail, give examples, descriptions, to elaborate. This may be a bit newer, so I'm going to give you a minute to read this to yourself. So let's see if I can help this information with some examples. Let's say I'm writing an informational essay about the first year of teaching. I might use listed support to elaborate. That sentence might sound like this. The first year of teaching can be a really stressful time of life. You're balancing your personal and work time, trying to understand the school culture, and figuring out how in the world to grade middle school work. That you saw was a list. I had some reasons. We could have changed the order around, and it wouldn't really have changed the meaning of that sentence. Let me try to do the same idea with general layered elaboration. That might sound like, the first year of teaching is a really stressful time of life. You're trying to balance your personal and your work time, starting to realize that you absolutely have no time for yourself. In fact, you never get to see your friends anymore. You're starting to wonder if you should change your mailing address to the school address because it seems like that's where you live, and you're always falling asleep by 8 o'clock at night. You can see there that that was a sentence-by-sentence progression of reasons, and I generally supported that idea. It was a bit general. We could have changed some of the order around, and it may or may not have impaired the connection of ideas. Now let me try it a third way with specific layered elaboration. That might sound like, the first year of teaching is a really stressful time of life. You're trying to figure out a balance of personal and work time, and realizing that you absolutely never have time for yourself because you are spending every living, breathing minute planning lessons for your classroom. And after you've planned those lessons, you actually have to go back and revise your plans because you weren't able to complete the lesson the way that you had planned it out. Not only that, you're spending a lot of time grading the work that students did during those lessons you had planned. You can see there that I was a bit more specific in developing that idea. I was using some cause-effect structure with my because statement, and reordering those sentences would probably impair the meaning of ideas. I hope that helps to support this list here from SBAC. I think of these levels as listed being level 1, the most simplistic, general layered level 2, and specific layered level 3. It might be interesting to notice the levels that your students are using, especially because you want to get to level 3 for effective argument writing. And here's some explanatory approaches that SBAC values in their rubrics. And I think most of us would agree with that list as well. So it's time to practice. I'm going to ask you to go into document 02, the exemplars, and read through them to really understand how those papers and rubrics align. Try to take about 15 to 20 minutes to do that. So you can pause the screencast here. As a reminder, sometimes we have those scored exemplars right from SBAC for your grade level, which happened this trimester for 8th grade, yay, and sometimes we don't. So hopefully we'll have all these boxes filled in by this time next year. Now that you've read the exemplars, it's time for you to give it a go with the check set, which is document 03. I'm going to ask you to read through that check set and really commit to scoring, because then you'll see in the key, which is document 04, how closely your scores are aligned to those of SBAC. Try to give yourself 20 to 25 minutes to do this. Go ahead and pause the screencast now. A reminder, scoring is not grading. Scoring is reading one sample, gathering evidence from that sample, and aligning it to a score. A score that a student gets on this interim may be very different from their writing grade. And another reminder that the dimensions have a lot of descriptors in them. You see a lot of bullets on one dimension. A student doesn't have to hit every one of those descriptors to receive that score. And because there's a limited number of points, we don't have 999 points in each scoring descriptor, thank goodness. There's going to be high ones and low ones, high fours and low fours. And I know that's really hard, but just try to look for the preponderance of evidence. We're not circling bullets, we're not averaging things out. We're looking to see where the preponderance lies, the evidence for that piece, and then align it to one of those score points. If you do have some time, it would be fabulous if you could calibrate together with one sample, maybe huddle around one teacher's computer, look at one of their students and work together to agree on scores for that sample. If you do have the time, you may want to take 15 or 25 minutes to do that work together now. And Sun put together this document. It's 5 in your folder to help you go directly to the area where you need to input the scores into Illuminate. So you can click on this document in your folder, go right to your grade level, click on that link, and once you enter your password, you should be right at the location where you need to be. The last thing we're going to ask you to do is share what your grade level considers below, at, and above for us to see how calibrated we are as a district. So if as a grade level team you could choose one student sample for each of those categories, give those 3 names and student ID numbers to your site IS, and that person will share with us up here. We'd appreciate that. Thank you so much for all that you do and all the hard work and time you put into teaching your kids. If you have any questions or want to clarify an item with me, please feel free to email me. And I do want to encourage you to visit the literacy site for the 8th grade argument units. There are examples of student work, scores for those work pieces, day-by-day lesson plans, checklists, rubrics, mentor texts. I hope a lot of support for you in the work that you're doing. Thank you again for taking the time to do this, and I wish you well.